Thank you so much for being so patient. Model and beauty queen thoda rehta hai ki, no, fix me this way, makeup dada. No, I will need my hair perfect, so it takes a little time. But as I start my talk here, I'll start by telling you a very simple fact that an environment where it's not safe for you or where it's not comfortable for you to be able to disagree is an environment that is focused not on your growth, but on this element of controlling you. And wonderfully, for most of us, that environment is our culture and our home. Culturally, we grow up surrounded by people and ideas that we inherently are never allowed to question. Talking back in our culture literally means talking back. When someone is older than you, you're not even allowed to answer them. Not yelling or arguing or fighting, but literally responding is not even allowed. That is how much compliance is, preferred in our community and our culture nationwide. And what that does is, as a country that is so focused on being picture perfect, we're very family oriented. We have a certain way that we like to present ourselves, our families, the name, our lineages. We want everything to look perfect on the outside. But what that does is, by prioritizing an outside portrayal of ourselves, we are compromising the internal state of our minds and our lifestyles and our happiness. So, for example, I'll talk with relevance to what's happening in the country right now with same-sex marriages. People are really disgusted at the idea of same-sex marriages because they're, bamboozled by the idea that a gay man or a gay woman would marry another gay man. And it's so mind-boggling. I look at them and I wonder, so tumko chahiye kya? Would you rather gay man marry a biological woman? Would you rather gay men marry your daughters? Because that's also what's happening, A lot of homosexual people in this country are in heterosexual marriages. And uske baad bahut acha to lagta hai, man, woman, 2 children, perfect family portrait. But on the inside, no one is happy. The partners aren't compatible, the marriage isn't surviving. The children are in a household where the parents aren't happy with each other, so the parents are also unavailable emotionally for the children. So as a ripple effect, out of wanting to create a perfect palatable picture, we've destroyed the lives of a lot of people that came out of it. Similarly for me, I'll tell you with my experience, I grew up in a household where things were really messed up. And I didn't realize that because of lack of diversity. What I mean by that in this context is that is all I knew. When you are home and you're not allowed to go out of your home, you see one thing for a very long period of time, that thing becomes your normal. No matter how crazy, messed up, or outwardly it is, as long as it is all you will know how to comply with it. So my normal was somebody's yelling. Alcoholism was very common, violence was very common. All these things were normal to me. And now when I do go out of my house and I explore the world, outside of the setting that I grew up in, and I'm exposed to different cultures, different stories, and different backgrounds, I realize, oh, acha aisa nahi hota. It's not normal to be treated a certain way. It's not normal to people to, not respect you. It's not normal for people to raise hands on children. I didn't learn that until very recently, only because I wasn't exposed to goodness. And that is very common in this country. A lot of us are constantly suffering, especially because we do not know that not to suffer is an option. Take an example of, rural areas where marriages are in a certain way. You'll see women, being pulled out of school or never going to school, and then they get married to a man who doesn't really respect them or honor them. A young daughter in that household is going to see their mother being treated a certain way their entire life, and eventually they'll comply with that when it comes to be their turn as well. You do what you're used to, and that's the thing about human beings, is we are more comfortable with familiarity and not as comfortable with correctness. So we would rather be in situations that feel familiar or feel like home or feel like what we're used to than be in situations that may be better for us but different than what we're used to. So what happened for me is, I'll tell you all that I'm a transgender woman, meaning that I was born male, and then throughout my life and my experiences, I transitioned and I identify now as a woman. The funny thing about this transition timeline is, it happened at a very crucial stage of my life. It was a very curious timeline for everybody's life. It happened in lockdown. So now, I want you to imagine this timeline with me. I have lived most of my life, being treated and talked to and spoken to and looked at a certain way, right? I go to school, I walk down the corridor, and there's people giving side eyes, snickering, and "Eh chakke," and all that. That's what I'm used to. I'm used to being treated like a joke, like something that's wrong, like something that's not deserving of goodness. Then the lockdown happens. I disappear from the world for a year, and I come out a conventionally attractive woman, and then suddenly this "Eh chakke" turns to "Hi, cutie, are you doing something tonight?" And no, it's wonderful. I'm so flattered. I'm so flattered by all the men and all the goodness that I've been facing. But also, you have to understand, it was so alien to me to be treated not only nicely in romantic spaces, but respect in general, because I didn't see that growing up. I wasn't used to, healthy environments. So what I did for the longest time is I resisted and I pushed those away. Because again, as a human being, I was seeking something that I was used to and not something that was good for me. So suffering का मुझे बहुत शौक था. मैं suffer कर के यहाँ पे आई हूँ. That is what my comfort zone was. So when people would even be nice to me, it was very hard for me to accept compliments because I was never exposed to them before. So my immediate reaction to compliments was, "Oh no, not me, don't say that." And then it translated into professional spaces also. When I started working and I got on the internet, and these people would reach out to me asking me, "Do you want to work with us? Do you want to shoot for us? Do you want to work on this campaign?" I would immediately say no to so many things. Because I had this deeply rooted belief of my own incompetence that came from the outside. And it took over me so strongly because there were very few times and spaces where these maladaptive beliefs that I picked up about myself could be questioned. Again, why? Because lack of diversity. My, household and my upbringing was very, very guarded. As in, अगर मेरे को घर के नीचे park में भी जाना है, so I have to tell someone, I can't be out after it's late. If I have to go to the mall with my friends, somebody's going to drop me, somebody's going to take me. In school, then you go to school and you have to listen to teachers. You have to ask for permission to pee. It's the craziest concept to me, how most of us will live this life of compliance. I, unluckily actually, was struggling in changing my documents. So when you change your gender, there's a lot of things you do on different levels. There's, physical things and medical things. There's also social things. There's also legal things, like changing my documents to say female instead of male. And that was taking a little bit of time. And for whatever reason, my 10th and 12th certificates, even to this day, are not changed. So, when I go to colleges, I've been to so many colleges as TED speakers. I've been to colleges as chief guests, judges, never as a student. That is the one thing I'm still trying to do. But the point of that is, the almost 2.5 years that I had under no institution, no educational institution, and also, some sort of rebellion against my family and exploring the world on my own was such a blessing in disguise. Because think about it. You're born into a household with ideologies and rules and customs that you're supposed to follow. And most of us will comply because we have to. That's all we know. And we're also dependent on these people, financially, emotionally, and these people cook for us, these people clean for us, these people take care of us. So we have to listen to them. Then we go to school. Then we're under our teachers and our supervisors and our friends and those people you listen to and you obey them and you have to ask for permission for everything. Then you go to universities and colleges, and again, it's slightly more liberal and slightly more freeing, but again, someone still has some sort of power to you and you have this compliance that is expected out of you. Then you start working. Then in the workplace, there's a certain code of conduct. There's people you have to report to superiors. You have people you have to answer to. And so in this system, do you realize how there's never a time where you're truly free to think what you want to think, or do what you want to do, or be who you want to be? And that is what happens in this country, globally rather, is we've built up a system in society that first makes you feel like you can't do anything independently, and you are somehow incompetent and incomplete, and then they sell you this solution that if you get this grade, then you'll be worthy. If you get this placement, then you'll be worthy. If you make this salary, then you'll be worthy. But the easiest thing to remember and the most important thing for us as human beings is to remember, we are born complete. And so life isn't, acquiring things and learning things to complete yourself. It's living to please yourself. And that is a perspective that I really, benefited from. Because now I do things where I enjoy things. I do things that I like to do. I go to spaces that, nourish me. So obviously, with gender roles, that played a very important part in my life. I was expected to act a certain way as someone who was born male, which I'm sure all of you will agree. You don't have to be transgender to, be bothered by gender roles. Up until a certain age, tum sabko, you could do anything. If you wanted to, go hopping around as a boy, it was fine. If you were a little feminine as a boy, it was fine. If you're a little masculine as a girl, it's fine. But then comes an age where you're not a child. You're this young man and young woman. And then there's this pressure on you to dress a certain way, sit a certain way. And that can take a toll on anyone. And especially it takes a toll on transgender people, because these roles that we have to comply with are not ours to begin with. These are not roles that we identify with. Even puberty, for example, was so difficult for me, as it is for many transgender children, because the mismatch between your experienced gender and your body becomes very physical. In the sense that I feel like a woman, but I'm also growing a beard, so it's a bit of a confusing situation. Similarly, the other way around. And so what these things did to me is they really deteriorated my self-image, and I thought really poorly of myself. But again, what saved me was diversity of experience and diversity of thought. Going out, independent thinking, experiencing, and traveling, especially going out of my home. I was just here and I was talking to Mr. Samuel, and I was telling him, there's such a big sky here. I feel so limitless when I got here, because back home, you look up and you see wires. And that is how it is. Back home, when you get out of the house, there's traffic. And you see nature and you forget how minuscule you are, and how so many of your problems are so not as big of a deal as you think they are. And that is one of the easiest things that changed my life, is everything in life is figure-outable. I read this study somewhere, and it was such an interesting conclusion that they came to, and it was about how culturally women are expected to be perfect and prim and proper. So how this translates later into their life in professional spaces is, if women and men are applying for the same job, and let's say there are 10 criteria to meet, women will not apply for that job until they meet all 10 of the criteria. But men will feel comfortable applying even if they meet 5 or 6, because there's not that pressure to be perfect and always, have the answer to everything and be prepared for everything. And that is what I feel like as women, we hold ourselves back a lot, because culturally we've been made to believe that unless we're 100% ready and perfect and prim and proper, we can't really apply or try or give ourselves a chance. And it's also, it's so funny to me, before I transitioned and I lived as a male, my father, he would drop me off to my friend's home. I had a lot of female friends because I enjoyed their company, and my father was, when he was dropping me off at my female friend's house, and he would be like, my man, he's going to that girl's house. So proud of me, and whatever I want to wear, I can wear. I remember, because I was very uncomfortable with my body, there was a time I really liked swimming. And you know how men usually wear those swimming trunks? I wasn't very comfortable having my upper body revealed. So I wanted to wear a full covering bodysuit. And I remember it was such a problem in my household that, you're a boy, you shouldn't, why are you covering up? You should be in those swimming trunks. And now then I transitioned. Suddenly, if I want to wear a 7-inch ka gala, मैं 9-inch ka bhi nahi kara sakti. It's a problem. Otherwise, they wanted me in trunks before. Now, if I want to be out late, or if I want to be out with a boy, it's this war zone at my home. My father cannot handle it at all. So I've seen it firsthand how things, are so different from men and women. And also, I feel like a great part of me being able to, do as many things as I've done is because I've had one of the most key important things to be able to succeed in life, and that is male privilege. I am a woman who grew up with male privilege, and I'm also a woman who grew up with male ego. So I'm not giving up on anything that I want. I'm getting what I want, and I'm not stopping. So that was a bit of an interesting thing for me. Professional spaces with diversity is also a big topic now. Everybody wants a rainbow logo on their company. Everybody has these campaigns for LGBT people. But a lot of it's very, very specific, very tokenism oriented. As in, we want diversity, but diversity pe also there's a certain beauty standard that we only want diversity that looks diverse enough. What I mean by that is, now that I'm auditioning for roles and modelings and all these campaigns, if there's a role for a woman, a cisgender woman, many times I'll audition for that role. And because I'm transgender, I'm denied that role. Recently, I auditioned for a lot of transgender roles, which perfect. I can act, I can sing, I look the part. I've gotten so many, I've cracked so many auditions and I've gotten the part. And so many times, one day before I was supposed to fly actually for this one shoot about a transgender story, this person calls me and they goes ki, actually, Ella ma'am, client ki taraf se na review aaya hai ki ye to ladki hi lag rahi hai. We want to show a transgender story. As in, they want somebody that looks like a man. They want somebody that looks like a man who's dressed as a woman. So diversity, maybe, there's a certain type and there's the certain standard that they expect you to be. And when you're not like that, you're not diverse enough. You're not transgender enough. You're not masaledar enough. And that's what they do with our stories as well. A lot of us have bad stories, sad stories, LGBT people, anyone who's different in any way, whether that be your religious beliefs or the way that you look or the way that you identify, we all have some stories of, people not accepting us, our parents not accepting us, or bullying in school, and all these sad sob stories, har kisi ki life mein hoti hain. But the thing is, we also have success stories to counter that. And nobody wants to talk about that. As soon as a transgender woman who's, living a very conventional life, looks a very conventional way, and has, successes, wants to talk about them, it's suddenly not as interesting because where's the Rona Dhona drama that we get TRPs from? And that's, I feel like, putting our community in a place that we should have left so long ago. Because then again, we're only given opportunities when we cry for them. When we give in to that submissive victim image, that is when people want to hire us. When we give in to that submissive victim image, that is when people want to portray our stories. And when we say, actually, I want to put my hardships to the side and I want to put on this strong image. I want my successes talked about. I want my triumphs talked about. There's cis people doing that. We don't need trans people to muddy the waters. So it becomes very difficult, Diversity, again, is so, so important, not only in the workplace, but within yourself. What I mean by that is, a lot of us, the things that we believe about ourselves are not actually authentic thoughts that we created. They're thoughts that were given to us. Now, what that means is, as a psychology student, I'll tell you, are any of you with a psychology background? Okay, wonderful, one person, amazing. Says a lot. As I was saying, the formative years of your life, 0 to 5 years old, they're actually very important. People tend to think, like, us time pe kya hua? How could that possibly affect you? You barely remember anything from that time. But the thing is, these years are very important because the way that you're treated in your formative years and your primary years actually makes an image of you, of how you believe about yourself and how you see yourself. So your self-esteem, basically. And it starts mostly with parents and primary caregivers. So for those of us, who had parents that were loving, emotionally available, and, caring, loving parents in a healthy household environment, we believe ourselves to be worthy of those good things. And for those of us that had absent parents or no parents or an unstable household or really, just grew up in an environment that wasn't ideal, we'll believe ourselves to be worthy of bad things because children do not have the ability to be reasoned in a way where they can shift the blame. So I always give this example is if I was to step down on this stage and, hit one of you, you would have the capacity to be able to say, Ella hit me and that was wrong on Ella's part. For children don't have that capacity, especially with their parents. When our parents treat us a certain way, children see them as gods. We survive from them. They give us food, they take care of us, they drive us around, they're perfect, and they're this almighty image. And so, when our parents falter, children don't blame them. Children blame themselves. I must be worthy of disrespect. I must be worthy of bad treatment. I must be worthy of neglect. And then this belief that you pick up early on in your upbringing is what you carry into your life all the way through, especially in relationships. This whole, kis kisi caption mein likha ki we accept the love we think we deserve. Very true. I've romantically inclined towards men that were very unavailable, emotionally unavailable, toxic men that would make me feel incompetent about myself because, again, that was familiar to me. That is what I was used to. I was used to being belittled and neglected. And so I would seek it out in every space, professional, romantic, personal, everywhere. And that is what I'm going to tell you guys right now. And that is why diversity is very important, is expose yourself to ideas. Question your upbringing. Question your elders. Talk back. Rebel. And form independent thoughts and not only stick to the thoughts and ideas that were assigned to you and really create a life that is, emotionally rich and filled with authentic experiences. Thank you.